Welcome to today's Ukraine War Update for August 4, 2026. For 40 days this summer, Ukraine ran one of the most ambitious campaigns of the entire war, not at the front, but far behind it, a sustained, deliberate effort to reach deep inside Russia and choke the machine that pays for the fighting. On the 4th of August, Ukraine's Security Service, the SBU, declared the operation complete. Its codename, 40 Days of Pressure. Approved by President Zelensky and run by the SBU, it was built around a single idea, that the war could be made so costly, so far from the front, that Moscow would feel it in its refineries, its ports, and eventually at the negotiating table. By the SBU's own count, more than 100 strategic targets were struck in those 40 days. This is what they hit, and what it may mean. At the heart of it was oil. Over the 40 days, Ukraine's long-range drones struck 14 refineries, and, at one point or another, all 11 of Russia's largest. The reach was the point. When Ukrainian drones set fire to the refinery at Omsk, in Siberia, nearly 3,000 kilometers from the border, the message was unmistakable. Russia no longer has any strategic depth. Nowhere is far enough. And the damage was real, not just Ukrainian claims. Independent analysts tracking the oil markets put Russia's refining at a 21-year low, around 3.9 million barrels a day, a fall of roughly a quarter in a single year. The SBU says its strikes disabled close to half of Russia's refining capacity. Even by the more cautious independent figures, this was one of the sharpest contractions in modern Russian history. And the consequences reached ordinary Russians. Fuel shortages spread across the country. By midsummer, disruptions were reported in 88 of Russia's 89 regions. There were petrol queues, 20-liter limits at the pump, and a string of export bans, first petrol, then jet fuel, then diesel, as Moscow scrambled to keep fuel at home. For a country that sells the world its energy, importing petrol from Belarus was a quiet humiliation. While the refineries burned, a second operation went to sea. Codenamed Molochka, and run by Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, it turned naval drones loose on Russia's so-called shadow fleet, the tankers and cargo ships that keep sanctioned oil and military supplies moving. In just 3 weeks, its commander said, some 200 vessels were hit, and the sea route through the Kerch Strait to Crimea was declared blocked, in his words, indefinitely. On land, the same logic went after logistics. Fuel trains were destroyed in the Rostov region, rail lines were cut by derailments near Tokmak and Zankoy, severing supply routes into occupied Crimea. Warehouses of Wildberries, Russia's answer to Amazon, and, Ukraine says, a supplier of drone parts to its army, were burned by the dozen. And at Engels too, the strategic bomber base, Ukraine destroyed a Tu-95, one of the very aircraft Russia uses to fire cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities. Pull back, and a pattern comes into focus, one that has been building for months. Refineries and oil tanks, ships, and the shadow fleet, power substations, rail junctions, fuel depots, highways. Taken one by one, they are individual strikes. Taken together, they are a strategy, not to seize ground, but to strangle the war economy that lets Russia keep fighting. The SBU put the cost to Russia, in the first month alone, at $13.5 billion, its own figure, impossible to verify from outside, but the direction is not in doubt. Ukraine has decided that if it cannot yet win at the front, it can raise the price of the war everywhere behind it. So what comes next? Analysts say Ukraine has already hit almost every refinery worth hitting, and is now shifting to the parts hardest to replace, the specialized processing units that depend on Western equipment Russia can no longer legally buy. Damage there could take not weeks, but well into next year to repair. Russia's answers, more air defense, a network of small refineries, are, by most assessments, too slow and too costly to matter soon. But there is a catch, and it hangs over Ukraine's own cities. The same summer that Ukraine learned to burn Russia's refineries almost at will, it began, quietly, to lose the fight over its own skies. Its stock of Patriot interceptors, the one weapon that reliably stops a ballistic missile, has fallen roughly threefold in a year. On one recent night over Kiev, just one ballistic missile in 27 was stopped. So the war now turns on a grim race. Ukraine is burning Russia's war economy faster than ever, but the question the next 40 days will answer is whether it can do so faster than Russia can burn through the shrinking shield that protects Ukraine's people. That wraps up today's update. If you found this useful, press the like button and subscribe in order to support this channel. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.